Republican Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin. Let's wade through some politics and get into policy as well. What do you make of this Washington Post report in light of the fact that the president's attorney, Jay Sekulow, said right on this show he had no role in drafting that statement? Now the Washington Post said he dictated it.
Good morning, Chris. I think you're aware of the fact I'm not involved in any of the investigations. That's the Senate Intel Committee, as well as Robert Mueller. So I'll leave those capable individuals and committees to get to the final facts of these things. We need to find out what the facts are, whether we need to take any additional action. But I'm not going to comment until we have their reports.
Not concerned by that report?
Yeah, Chris, there's so much out there being talked about right now. You know, Kim Strauss wrote a pretty interesting article, Who Funded the Russia Dossier on Trump? That's pretty interesting as well. What's happening with Deborah Wasserman Schultz? I just don't have any information on that. I think you could do all kinds of reporting. What I'm trying to focus on is how do we fix the mess that is Obamacare? How do we get tax relief to the American taxpayer? You know, how do we actually grow our economy so we have greater opportunities for Americans?
Dysfunction in the White House and how we are led matters, though, right? One of your fellow senators from Arizona, Senator Flake, wrote an op-ed saying that it's time for conservatives to stand up against this dysfunction, to realize that they own, in part, making Donald Trump president. What do you make of his op-ed?
Well, I wrote my own op-ed about dysfunction in the United States Senate. Listen, I'm not a fan of Washington, D.C. There's one of the reasons I'm trying to devolve power away from the federal government to state governments and local governments where it's going to be more efficient, more effective, more accountable. So I'm not going to defend this process. I'm not going to defend this place. I'm here to limit the influence of the federal government over people's lives. And one of the ways we need to do that, of course, though, is we need to kind of turn back the clock. We need to actually have the Senate function. For example, right now the Senate, a lot of people don't realize this, we're primarily in the personnel business, and both parties have obstructed presidents trying to make appointments. I think we're ahead of the obstruction of past administrations. And one of my simple proposal is let the committees primarily vet administration nominees, do a really good job of it, and then just limit debate on any nominee that's sub-cabinet or other than Supreme Court justices to 2 hours, so we can actually turn our attention to the enormous challenges facing this nation. Right now, precious Senate floor time is just being wasted on nominees.
Well, let's talk about the word wasted, because is less time the right remedy for a toxic tone? Isn't it about garbage in, garbage out? I mean, isn't the bigger problem that partisanship, tribalism has been rewarded, and that's why when the Republicans are the out party, they block everything they can? Your leader going far, as far as saying that's our plan, is to obstruct everything. And now you have the Democrats who are in that position. That seems to be part of their modus operandi. Isn't that about more than just how much time they get?
So I'm proposing let's not allow either party the ability to block a president being able to staff his administration. Let's not use Senate floor time that really should be used to debate, for example, the debt ceiling, tax reform, how do you fix this mess that is Obamacare, appropriation bills, so we can start thoughtfully prioritizing spending. That's what we should be using the Senate floor time to debate, those serious challenges facing this nation, all the foreign policy problems that we're faced with today. So right now we are primarily using Senate time to really just have it empty. If you go to the Senate chamber sometime, you might have one senator talking to an empty chamber, and the clock is running because we've got to go through all these procedures just to get to a vote on a nominee. I say limit the debate time on the Senate floor to 2 hours per nominee and let the committees do their work.
All right, we direct people to Senator Johnson's op-ed. Read in. He gave you the headline of it, but there's some rationale in there you'll want to read as well. Let's talk about this business of the American people. Senator Graham says you guys in the Senate are going to listen to the president. You're not going to move on from health care. What do you see as most likely?
Well, we can't move on from health care because Obamacare is a mess. I wrote another column in the New York Times talking about the forgotten men and women, the people Bill Clinton talked about. They're busting it, working 60 hours a week. Their premiums have doubled, sometimes tripled, and their coverage cut in half. I mean, those are the people who have been largely ignored in this whole health care debate because we haven't focused on premiums that have artificially skyrocketed because of the faulty architecture of Obamacare. So anyway, this problem isn't going away. Obamacare, these markets are collapsing. Premiums have skyrocketed. It's certainly within our ability to bring those premiums down. Maine did it. Let's take a look at some of the states in terms of what they did. Maine instituted guaranteed issue pre-existing conditions coverage. Their premiums doubled. They didn't repeal it. They supplanted it with invisible high-risk pools, cut premiums in half. It's entirely possible if we're honest, if we're courageous enough to actually address the root cause of these problems.
So how do you get it done, though? You had several different iterations within your own party. You couldn't get it done. What do you think might work within your own party, let alone with the Democrats?
Well, what I've already announced is in my committee, Homeland Security, Governmental Affairs, we are the Senate Oversight Committee. We're not the committee of jurisdiction to write the legislation, but we can certainly hold hearings to lay out the reality. So, Chris, I come from a manufacturing background, solved a lot of problems. There's a problem-solving process you go through, starting with information. In this alternate universe, if you get any information, it's at the very tail end of the process. So we're going to thoughtfully go through the problem-solving process, define the problem, get the information, do a root cause analysis, and let's try and focus on achievable goals. I think if you lay it out that way, you know, my committee's got a pretty good track record. Even under President Obama, we had 49 pieces of legislation signed into law by trying to find areas of agreement, laying out those realities, going through the problem-solving process. So that's what I'm going to do. That's my part as Chairman of Homeland Security Governmental Affairs. I hope other committee chairmen do the same thing.
Good. I mean, that was a big part of the criticism of this process, which was that you didn't have these hearings. You didn't have people going through it the way you are now. So let's see what it yields. And let me repeat the promise. Senator, you are welcome to come on here to New Day with your charts, your facts, and your figures and sell what you think is the right proposal to the American people. It would be a great use of our time.
I will absolutely do that. Look forward to it.
All right. You are welcome here always. Senator, thank you. Allison.